always wonderful to be at the CII CBRE Conference, and this year is no different. I look forward to some delightful sessions today.
I'm happy to be here in the CII and CBRE Conference. Looking forward to some engaging sessions and being part of some of them. Thank you so much.
The good news is, what I'm thinking this spot is that in India, we were almost 65 to 70% of our office occupiers are multinational companies. So and that to American multinational companies. So our dependence on foreign companies is huge to sustain the office market. The good news is the percentage of Indian companies coming into the office space is increasing every year. So that will keep us going. I'll stop here because I can keep on talking about office market. The other good part in the real estate market in India is industrial and logistics. We have seen an increase of almost 35% in supply in the industrial space. It's again a lot of activity in logistics, warehousing, and I think that will continue. Residential side of real estate, no doubt, is doing well, and if we look at the increase in the sales in the same period for last year, there's been about a 4 to 5% increase in sales. Of course, in the residential market, I think two key areas are interest rates. Will be able to keep the mortgage rates at a sustainable level, and prices. I'm just concerned the prices are going up too high, and how long can those sustain? But otherwise, the demand so far is good, and as long as our job market remains good and the interest rates are at a competitive level, our residential market will sustain. Although so far it's doing quite well. This year, India saw its first retail REIT. So we have office REITs, retail REIT we saw for the first time, and I'm glad that this has happened because this will encourage more money to come into the retail side, and not only office and residential. We're also seeing investments and develop expansion in hospitality, data center. Data centers are the new, again from a low base, but next 2-3 years there'll be a lot of investment going to data centers. So for example, India is seeing almost 103 megawatt of additional data center in the first 6 months of this year. Very quickly on flex space, I see we're sitting there on the scooter on the flex space side. Huge amount of activity happening. It is here to stay. What we call in the good old days, it was called a business center. Now it's got fancy terms like flex and all other terms are managed office space, etc. Is interestingly, there is today. If you look at total leasing and how much percentage is of that is in flex space, is increasing every year. And I believe, if my stats are correct, this is about almost 14 to 18% or something like that. It's a large percentage of total percentage. And other areas, life sciences, I think India has again a huge opportunity to expand in life sciences. We are looking at, because of a skilled manpower, we are looking at increase going on. And finally, hospitality. We have, although there is a lot of activity happening, but we have seen about 12,000 rooms in the hotel space coming in between the last 2 years, which if you look at for India's size, is a minuscule number, it's nothing. But we are seeing more investments coming in the hospitality and hotel side. This is only going to increase, especially with the terms like leisure, which is business and leisure, and workations, which is really increasing, and we'll see quite a bit of activity in the hospitality side. Although again, the investments are minimal, but I think they're going to increase. I just want to conclude by saying that this is a huge opportunity for India. The question mark is, can we as a country really leverage and optimize on all the interests? Number one is China plus one. I still feel as a country we have not captured the benefit of China plus one. Whenever I go in the region, people who are in China, they want to diversify, and the new capital is actually reluctant to invest further in India. So there's a huge amount of liquidity sitting. So one is of course manufacturing, where I feel even Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand get more manufacturing opportunities from China plus one than India, right? So we need to do something to capture that. And second is all the amount of capital which is sitting around, which normally would go to China, which is looking for alternates. Can India, I don't think we have fully grabbed that. If you look at the Middle East, only the GCC countries are sitting on $3 trillion of surplus funds, thanks to, I would say, to the Ukraine war, which pushed the oil prices up. Just that increment of oil prices, the GCC countries are sitting on $3 trillion of surplus money. That is India's GDP, right? So can we tap into that? Sanjeev is from Singapore. Singapore is one of the largest exporters of capital, especially in real estate in the world. If you look at MSA, Capital Land, Capital, GIC, all these, they're sitting on billions and billions of dollars of funds. And India and Singapore have a great relationship, but can we provide opportunities for that money to come to India? I think that's a major area to look at. Ease of doing business. The good part is in India, huge amount of money has been spent on infrastructure, and it is now we can see it, so it's not on paper. Some years back, Mr. Modi had committed $1 trillion to be invested in Indian infrastructure for next 3, 4, 5 years, and yes, it is becoming visible. But I think we still need to do much more to attract all those investments in India. And whilst we are on a very strong footing, we should still look at all the unknowns, be cautiously optimistic. And the two areas where the entire globe is looking at the challenges, interest rates and inflation. And I think we should also look at what is happening. But otherwise, India is in a great position. We are fortunate to be in India because next many years there will be a lot of action here. And I think today's conference is going to be interesting. There's some very good panelists. The people who are participating, I would say today is one of the best I've seen for some time. And I'm sure it's going to be an interesting day. Thank you.
I think the most important thing has been return to office from an occupier perspective. And across different sectors, we've seen those numbers vary from city to city. We've also seen growth in Tier 2 and Tier 3 markets purely because of distributed work. And I think that's played an important role in the growth of the Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. We've seen certain markets, sub-markets in some of the larger cities. We've seen some of the suburbs offering value propositions in terms of cost of rentals, availability of space, proximity to residential catchments. We've seen super growth in infrastructure in every city growing in India. Metro predominantly, I mean if you go to Mumbai, you see 300 kilometers of metro work going on. You see that happening in Bangalore, you see that happening in Chennai, you see that happening in Hyderabad, Pune. So all the cities have so much infrastructure growth. And on one hand, the developers are enhancing their game of building world-class environments to attract that occupier user for that space, looking at amortization, and how they can take it to the next level.
Manik he played a nice little test innings like Rahul Dravid, and he dodged a few very important questions that I've raised. So, we won't prod him any further, but, Rahul, maybe one of the things that we spoke about yesterday was, land funding, interest rates, how there are many more avenues of institutional financing available overseas. If you talk about mutual funds, you talk about insurance companies, there's a very, very small fraction, if at all, of any of that capital that comes into real estate, and maybe that's one of the issues there are in terms of the total pool available. At the same time, there's a reason why that pool is not available to real estate, right? We've seen many cycles in the last 25-30 years, so it's a tough one for the regulator as well, right? I mean, I think RBI has done a fabulous job in making sure that we don't have crazy bubbles despite the crazy euphoria in the market in many business cycles. maybe there's a finer balance to strike?
I disagree with that, Gaurav. I think, let me just give you a little macro about the financing bit, right? We always compare ourselves with China, US. Now, $1 trillion of economy or GDP would require $100 billion of real estate loans outstanding, right? Now, we are a $3.5 trillion economy today. We need anywhere up to $350 billion of real estate loans outstanding. Okay, you want to guess what's the number in India? It's $75 billion. We are only 80% lower, right? And it's a huge, huge margin, right? Why do global economies do it? So every $100 billion they spend, there is a 3x multiplier to GDP, right? So their GDP increases by $300 billion. So in China, real estate contribution to GDP is 30%. US real estate contribution to GDP is 25+%. In India, we are at 8%, right? So I think there is a real shortage in terms of options being available for a developer or an asset holder like us, like MEA REIT, in terms of financing. I wouldn't say banks are not there. Banks are more than happy to lend. They are in the lending business. It's just that there are a lot of regulatory barriers.
I am happy to be part of the CII CBRE event and congratulations on hosting it.